Good morning, Sparrows. We are on a journey with Jesus to the cross. That's what we've been doing. So, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the Jesus entry into Jerusalem. He came on a donkey, came humbly. Talked about a bunch of things that he did, and then last week we talked about the Last Supper and what that means. So we're picking up from that, and the account of Jesus going to the cross is long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read snippets of it and tell you about it. But here's what happened after that dinner, that Last Supper. Um, Jesus and his disciples, his best friends, went to a place called the Garden of Gethsemane. It's one of their favorite spots they would go out to and hang out on the Mount of Olives. And during that time, Judas, one of Jesus' 12 best friends, had betrayed Jesus. And the Jewish religious leaders and authorities came and they arrested Jesus in that garden. Peter, one of Jesus' best friends, actually pulled out a sword and tried to strike one of the people arresting Jesus, but Jesus stopped him. And he said, "Don't you think I could call 12 legions of angels from my Father and they would come?" And the first thing you need to know about the cross, it's so easy for us to feel sorry for Jesus because it's brutal what happened to him. It's so easy for us to think that, but that's not the point of this story. Um, Jesus, he's arrested, he's brutally whipped and sent to the cross, but it's because he chose it, not because anybody could do it. He could have at any point just said, "Nope, not doing it." But we go all the way back to Christmas. This is why Jesus was born. This is why Jesus came. Christmas was the beginning of Jesus' life on earth, and it was always a steady walk to go to this cross for us. So it's not poor Jesus, it's really poor us that Jesus went to the cross for. So they arrest him, they take him away. He goes through a couple of different trials. He's beat up. I mean, he's just horribly treated, horribly treated. And then, one of the things that happened was Pontius Pilate, who was the Roman governor, he tried to release Jesus. And the same crowds that were saying Hosanna on Sunday, 5 days later, are saying crucify him. And they had a custom where they would give up one criminal at the Passover time to kind of just make the Jews feel better. And he offered Barabbas, a murderer, a criminal, an insurrectionist. Should I release Barabbas or should I release Jesus? And they all say Barabbas. We are Barabbas. We are the ones that got freed and released because of Jesus from our sin. Well, they lead Jesus away. And when they did that, they stripped him completely. He would have carried a big crossbeam and he had to walk to his execution. He was so weak that he fell down numerous times. Finally, there was a guy named Simon from Cyrene in Africa, and the Romans just pulled him out of the crowd. "You carry his cross." And so he did. Simon is us. To follow Jesus means to take up his cross. Well, what does that mean? It means we live a life of dying to ourselves. We live a life of servanthood. It's not about us anymore. To be a follower of Jesus, it is not about us. It's about Jesus. And so Simon carries that cross. It says a large crowd trailed behind, including many grief-stricken women. But Jesus turned and said to them, "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children." Again, this is Jesus saying, "Hey, don't worry about me. This is I could get away from this any moment I wanted to, but I'm doing this on purpose. Weep for yourselves. Weep for your own sin that brought me to this cross." So they bring him to a place called Golgotha. It says 2 other criminals were led out to be executed with him when they came to the place called the Skull. They nailed him to the cross. And the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. Crucifixion, by the way, was as brutal an execution and death as you could possibly imagine. So Jesus is nailed to a cross. Cross is lifted up, suspended. He's naked on the cross, humiliated. It's in a public place. And as he's being nailed and lifted up, you know what he says? Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. Can you imagine that? These are the people that are killing him. And he says, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Incredible, otherworldly love. But you know, those soldiers that were doing that, that's us. It's not the soldiers that nailed Jesus to the cross. We did. It's our own sin. It's our own turning away from God that did that. You know, but Jesus responds to us, to his Father, Father, forgive them. Forgive us. Forgive us. They don't know what they're doing. So Jesus' judgment on the cross is our forgiveness of sins. And I hope as I say these words that will sink so deeply inside of you that Romans 5:8 says, the proof of God's amazing love is this, that while we were yet sinners, while we didn't care about God, Christ died for us. Christ died for you. I'm going to say your names. Christ died for you, Daniel Walton. Christ died for you, Abby. Christ died for you, Max. Christ died for you, Joanna. Christ died for you, James. Christ died for you, Dan and Neri. Christ died for you, Noah, and your friend. Christ died for Preston. Christ died for me. So he's on that cross, and the crowd watched, and the leaders scoffed. He saved others. They let him save himself if he's really God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers mocked him too by offering him a drink of sour wine. The sour wine was a drug to offset a little bit of the pain of the cross. Jesus wouldn't take it. Why? Why wouldn't he take that to alleviate his suffering? Jesus wanted to taste the full judgment of sin for us. Didn't want to dull it. Taste it all. And while he's on that cross, and you know, people are brutal, they're mocking him. Well, today, all through our world, Jesus is mocked. You know, I love movies. Really love movies. I started noticing how many movies there are where Jesus Christ's name is taken in vain as like a cuss word. That's this. Mocking Christ. That's the kind of society we live in. Then it says, one of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed. So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it, saving yourself and us while you're at it. Can you believe this? There's two criminals being crucified on either side of Jesus. And one of them starts having attitude towards Jesus when he's being crucified himself. But the other criminal protested. Don't you fear God even when you have been sentenced to die? We deserve to die for our crimes. But this man hasn't done anything wrong. This one criminal had insight into who Jesus was. And I think it was he was watching the way Jesus was dying. They were dying, and he was watching the way Jesus was dying with them. And I think he heard, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. And he just said, this guy has done nothing wrong. And then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus replied, I assure you today, you will be with me in paradise. Here's an incredible thing. This criminal's life was a wasted life until his last breath. Did nothing good, nothing to earn God's favor or love. But in this last moment, he says, Jesus, remember me. And Jesus says, I will. You'll be with me in paradise today. He gets forgiveness and salvation, though he's done absolutely zero to earn any of it. And that's important for us. We cannot earn God's love. We cannot earn heaven. It's a gift of God to us when we turn to him. By this time, it was about noon, and darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. The light from the sun was gone. And suddenly, the curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn down the middle. In the temple, there was compartments, and one is called the Holy of Holies. It's where the Ark of Covenant was, and that was considered the presence of God. There was a big, thick, purple curtain that blocked access to the Holy of Holies. Only one person could ever enter it, and only one time a year, the high priest. Anyone else entering it, it would mean death. And it kind of symbolizes that we are blocked from access with God unless there's a high priest that can go in there and atone for sins. So when Jesus was dying on that cross, the curtain was torn in half by God. You know what was being said there? Men and women are no longer blocked from the presence of God. Salvation has occurred. There is access to God for everyone who wants to come in. That invitation is for all of us. And then Jesus shouted, Father, it is finished. What's finished? Jesus accomplished his mission to save us by his sacrifice on the cross, giving his body and his blood for us. And you have to remember, you have to say it personally. It was given for you. His body and blood for you, for me. And then he says, Father, into your hands I entrust my spirit. With those words, he breathed his last. The rest of the story, Jesus is taken down from the cross. Two of the religious leaders who voted against Jesus being crucified came and took the body, wrapped it, put spices on it, buried it. The women sat there looking as this happened. It was late on Friday. Sabbath was coming and they couldn't do anything. The women determined they were going to come back on Sunday, and that's when we're coming back next week with the women on Sunday morning. But for today, I hope you realize that the amazing proof of God's love for you is this. While you and I did not care about God, while you and I are sinners, Christ died for us. Amen.